the third session of a five-part series that we are doing here at Athabasca University, all around developing your research as a graduate student. And so I would just like to thank everyone for joining us today. This session is on citation management, as you can see. I guess before I get started too far, I should do the land acknowledgement. Athabasca University respectfully acknowledges that we are on and work on the traditional lands of the Indigenous people, Inuit, First Nations, and Métis of Canada. We honor the ancestry, heritage, and gifts of the Indigenous people, and we give thanks to them. I am located on Treaty 8 territory, which is the traditional territory just north of Athabasca, just 1 kilometer north of Treaty 6 territory. And I have lived, worked, and played here my whole life. If you have a land acknowledgement, feel free to throw it in the chat, just like Jennifer did. So today we have Jennifer Rempel with us, and Jennifer is going to do this presentation on the citation management with Zotero. It is being recorded and will be available at a later time on the Athabasca University Library YouTube page, and we'll throw a link to that in the chat so you can access that. And just so everyone is aware, we have quite a few people joining us today, so we just have everyone's mics and cameras muted. There will be time throughout the presentation where we will allow questions, and at that time you can raise your hand and we can give you access to your mic and camera, or feel free to use the chat as well. So with that, I will hand the floor over to Jennifer. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you, Crystal. I was just looking for that YouTube video link, but I believe we have a handout as well, which I think we'll be emailing it to attendees, and I can also share a link to that at the end. So yes, this recording will be available on our YouTube channel. I just have to find the link to that, to the library, and I'm seeing a lot of links to other faculties at AU, but it's okay, I'll post that link later. What I am going to share right now actually is a link to our poll. So just real quick, I had people at the beginning, attendees, just quickly share whether or not they have used a citation manager before. So if you follow the link there, it's just a simple yes, no. Have you used a citation manager? So that includes Zotero, Mendeley, Endnote, maybe some other ones. So if you want to just go ahead and vote. It looks like there were a few, and I'm trying to just see the results here, and I'll share those later. Okay, so it looks like most people haven't used the citation management tools before. That's totally okay, because that's what we're here to learn. So I'm going to go ahead then, and we'll start sharing. We'll get into the PowerPoint here real quick. Okay, so as Crystal mentioned, my name is Jennifer Rempel. I'm currently the Information Literacy and Resource Access Librarian here at Athabasca University Library. So what are we going to cover today? So we will do an introduction to citation managers in general, what they are. I'm going to show you where to find our citation management guide, and of course that link to YouTube where we'll post this video later in the week. And we're going to take a look at Zotero specifically and how you can use that to import citations, create bibliographies, and then to collaborate. There should be time at the end of the presentation for questions you may have. You can type those in the chat box as they come up, but when I'm sharing my screen, which I'll be doing mostly live sharing, I won't be able to answer those right away, but I can answer them at the end as well. Okay, so let's just get started with that. So what are citation management tools? Some of you may know already if you've used them. So these are softwares that allow you to capture citation information for resources like journal articles, books, and websites. So these tools work by organizing your references into collections that you can sort, search, and annotate if you like. They typically will allow you to create bibliographies for your assignments in almost any citation format you can think of. So these include APA, MLA, Chicago, the typical ones, but also there's some journal ones too. You can also use these to collaborate with colleagues if you like, and to create professional profiles. So first I'm going to go back to sharing my screen because we're going to talk about this in more detail. So, okay, and here is our, can you see my screen right now? You should be able to see our results breakdown. So most people have not used citation management tools before, but some of you have. So it's about, yeah, 60-30 there. Okay, so I'm going to show you where to find our guide. So hopefully most of you have been to the library website before. We have a very useful guide on citation managers here. So if you go to Get Library Support, Guides, Tutorials, and Webinars, or Evaluating and Citing Information, either one will get you there, but we'll go Evaluating and Citing. because these are our guides specifically, of course, about evaluating and citing. So citing your sources, we have a guide to citation styles. So these include APA, Chicago, MLA, and then our citation management guide. So it's a pretty basic guide. It just explains to you in more detail what citation management tools are and then where to download them. So if you're curious about Mendeley, Endnote, for example, we do have like a comparison chart. One thing I do want to be very clear about is that AU Library doesn't actually support these tools, if you know what I mean. So many students like to use Zotero and Mendeley and Endnote. It's not a case that the AU Library pays for access to these on behalf of students. Zotero and Mendeley are free. Endnote is free. The basic version is free, but you have to pay for access to Endnote. So we can maybe give some advice about how to use citation managers, how to import citations, that kind of thing. Troubleshooting, you're going to have to go to Zotero and Mendeley or Endnote for that, because we don't, strictly speaking, support them. We just show students how to use them because many students like to do that. So again, Zotero and Mendeley are quite similar. This presentation will go over Zotero specifically. Again, it's pretty similar. Zotero and Mendeley are quite similar. I believe we have some older webinars on our YouTube channel that cover Mendeley as well, but they're pretty much the same. So if we're going to be looking at Zotero, of course, the first thing you want to do is set up your Zotero account. And you can do this, zotero.org. It's pretty straightforward. So what you have to do, though, is you have to download two versions. If you go to download, the website will figure out what, of course, what browser you're using and what system. So in this case, I'm using Zotero 6 for Windows and the Zotero connector. So one thing I want to be clear too is you have two libraries. There's a web library and a desktop library. So the web library, of course, is on the web, it's in the cloud, it's on a website. That means you can access your Zotero account anywhere you have a web connection, right? If you're on your phone, on your laptop. The desktop connector is useful as well. So you kind of have to install both to get the full benefits of Zotero. So you can see there's a desktop app only on your main device, or the web library, which is, of course, on the web and accessible anywhere. The best thing to do is to use both. And I wish this little tab would go away. Oh, there we go. Okay. So you do want to use both. So when we go back to Zotero, sorry, this has been really, I got to move this control panel here. Being quite annoying. So anyway, if we go back to zotero.org, you can download here, and then sign in, you create your account, all those things. You also want to use the web connector. So this is, again, you have to use the browser extension, which you can see here. You're going to want to use the browser extension if you want to import citations from the library catalog or websites, things like that. So it's really useful to download the web connector. So you want to download three things, or create three things: the web app, the desktop app, and then the web browser connector. So once those are all installed and you're logged in, you can see what your library will look like. Now, I have nothing in this library right now. I have a few little things here because I have used it before, so I do have a little bit. But your library, when you first start using Zotero, will be empty. So we're going to just start importing some citations so you can see what that looks like. And just for clarity here, as I pointed out briefly, when you install the web connector, you can see a little piece of paper on the web browser that indicates that it's ready to go. Okay, so we're going to start importing citations. So the first thing you want to do, though, is create collections. So the way that Zotero and other tools work is they import all of your citations into one big library, right? So one big page. What you're going to want to do is create separate collections for items for which you're going to have a separate bibliography, if that makes sense. So if you're taking a history course, for example, you don't want a big history folder. You want a folder for like history paper number 1, or my paper about the history of the Romans, that kind of thing, right? So you want to make sure, because when you create a bibliography, everything that's in that folder will be part of the bibliography. So if there's material that you aren't going to want to include or aren't going to want to cite, for example, might not want to save it in that folder. So the first thing you want to do is create folders. You can do this in a few ways here. This is the web version. I'll show you on the desktop version here. So here, if you go to desktop, you can do it in a few ways. Pretty easy. You go to File, New Collection. So I'm going to call this biology paper. Bio paper, for example, right? Just this will tie into my examples a little bit. So again, create the new collection, and there you are. And this is a whole new collection where you can sort your citations for this specific paper. You can click on this folder as well to create a new collection. There are a number of ways to do that. But again, the important thing about collections is only items that you're going to include in your paper should be there. So you could create a bigger collection for all of your bibliographies, but if you're going to want to cite things in a specific paper, you're going to want to keep those collections separated by assignment. So we'll just cancel that. So we have our new paper folder here. So what I'm going to do then is show you how to import some references, finally. So we'll go back to the library homepage. I'll just close my window here. And I did some sample searching. So for example, my paper is on biodiversity. Climate change, global warming, and biodiversity. Again, the point of this demonstration isn't for search strategies. This is for Zotero. So this is the very, very basic search, but just to get a sense of how this works when you're importing citations. Okay, so I've done my search, and I've prompted to log in again, so I know I'm on the AU collections. And again, very basic. So when I'm doing my search here, what I want to do to import citations, and you can see way too many results, but that's neither here nor there. If I see an article that I want to import, the best way to do that is to click on the title, and this brings you to what's called the full record. So this just shows you all of the citation information, if there's full text, all this stuff. So if I want to import this into my Zotero collection, it's pretty basic, right? I just go to Export. And here it will tell you which type of format, and here we see Zotero. The key thing to remember is RIS, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. But anyway, Zotero is the format, so we click Save. And as you can see, it's just thinking about it, and it will pull the citation into Zotero, so using the connector here. So I say, OK. And you want to pick the folder. So it'll automatically save to the last folder that you were in. So I was in my biology paper folder, and here we are. Citation has been pulled in. I will note that it does not import full text PDFs. That's a really important thing to be aware of. So what you want to do with PDF, so that's actually a big misnomer. I should probably clear that up. When you're importing a citation from a database, you're only importing the citation information. You are not importing the actual PDF, right? So that's really important to be aware of because it's actually a pretty big point of confusion for many students. What you're going to want to do is you can save the PDF to your desktop and then attach it to your Zotero link. So I'm going to, well, it's a little bit too long to demonstrate right now, but basically if I were to download and save this PDF to my desktop, I could then link it up to the citation in Zotero by clicking on, there's a little thing here, and it would attach, it would search for the PowerPoint and attach it, but because I don't have it, I mean the PDF, it won't do that right now. But do be aware of that. You're only importing the citation. So one thing to be aware of, though, is to get back to your article, this saves the URL. So if you want to go back to this article, you can use the URL here, and then it will take you back to the article within the database. So if you want to download and attach the PDF, you can do that, or you can just use the URLs. The important thing is having the citation information, because once you have this, you can always go back and find the article wherever it may have been. Okay, so I want to show you a few other things because importing can come in different forms. We have some very good collections. They're called ProQuest. So one thing to be aware of when you are searching in Discover, which is the main search on our homepage, does not search through all of our collections. So we have a really good suite of databases called ProQuest. These databases are often not indexed in Discover. Long story short, they're two competing companies, so ProQuest doesn't want to share their data with Discover, with EBSCO. So when we do our search here, you can see I did biodiversity and climate change. So we'll do that again. And I believe I had specified Canada. So you can see how that might work. Again, very basic search. I could use the different boxes. The purpose is to show you the citations. Okay, so again, as an example, what would I do to import a citation? This is a bit different, and the reason I'm showing you ProQuest is because it's a little bit hard to find. You might think it's Cite or this. You actually have to go to All Options. And then you see here again, Zotero isn't mentioned by name, but you can see Citavi, Mendeley, etc. All kinds of formatting tools. RIS, again, RIS is the one to go with whenever you're importing to Zotero. So I'll click that, and same thing. It will ask you the format, this kind of thing. That's fine. We'll continue, and it will take its time. And in this case, it's a bit different. You have to open the folder, and it will, once you click on that, import into Zotero. So in this case with ProQuest, it will go to this folder called ProQuest Documents, but this is useful to know because you can then drag and drop. So now both of our citations are in our folder for biology. Now what I can do with this is just simply delete. So you go to delete, because we don't need that whole folder because this paper, the citation is already here. So all the information I need is here, so we don't need to have that extra one. Okay, so that's using ProQuest. Another thing I want to show you really quickly was an issue called, I don't know if you're familiar with DOIs. Now let's see, this does not look like it has a DOI. So what a DOI is it's a digital object identifier. If you're familiar with APA citations and I believe MLA, they would like you to use the DOI for the objects, the articles you find online. So for the DOI, you can look for it under abstract or details, or in your Discover searches, you can probably find that there too in the information. But there is no DOI as far as I can tell. So something that I wanted to show you about this is that if you do need a DOI, digital object identifier for your paper, one thing to be aware of is they're not all going to have them. So there's a website called crossref.org. Very, very useful. And again, this is in the handout. Crossref, if an item has a DOI, it will be here. So I'm going to take a look and see, can I find the DOI for this item? Copy paste. What I like to do is put those within quotation marks. So you go to search metadata, and then within quotation marks, because this will keep all the words linked as a single term. So I'm going to search for metadata, see if I can find that DOI. And one thing to be aware of is if, okay, I don't know why it's not doing anything. Seems to be frozen. Okay. It's not search. Okay, there we go. So if this article doesn't show up, it probably means it doesn't have a DOI. So you can see here, the DOI is always included in the information with Crossref. Crossref is very useful for finding DOIs. Again, you're not going to lose marks if the item doesn't have a DOI, right? Sometimes they just don't. So in this case, I believe it's a report, so it won't have one necessarily. So yeah, good to know. Anyway, Crossref, useful site for finding DOIs. It's a little bit of an aside. Another tool I want to show you for importing citations is Google Scholar. Google Scholar is similar to, I mean, a lot of you hopefully are familiar with it, but if not, that's cool. Google Scholar is like Google, of course, but it only searches the web. It trawls the web, it trawls libraries, it trawls institutional repositories for scholarly materials. This is like articles, reports, that kind of stuff. So it's all going to be scholarly, academic, sometimes peer-reviewed, sometimes not. Do be aware of that. But very, very useful place to find citations. If you forget sometimes, like I've done this before where I really quickly needed to find an article, throw it into Google Scholar. If you have AU library links set up, that can help you. So I'm just going to do really quickly biodiversity and Canada. So again, you're going to get millions of results, very simple search. But in this case, you can find the citation here. So again, if I need to copy paste a citation really quickly, I will click on Cite and look, MLA, APA, Chicago, all kinds of styles, right? You can copy paste. One thing I will warn you about, and I'll warn you about this throughout, is computer or machine generated citations might be wrong. So in this case, you might want to look at the APA formatting here in terms of the number of authors, that kind of thing. You always want to double check, but it's a very useful place to just grab a citation. But also, you can import these into Google Scholar. So if you click on Cite, again, the very bottom, you see BibTeX, Endnote, RefWorks. We don't have the three of these. BibTeX, I believe, is for LaTeX, which I don't know if anybody uses, but I don't know much about that one. But for our purposes, to import citations from Google Scholar, you want to use RefMan. Like RIS, it just means Ref Manager. So I can click on RefMan. And do I want to import this? Yes, I do. Okay, and you can always click that off where it always allows it, so this wouldn't come up again, just so you're aware. Okay. And then I'm saving to this folder. That's right. And then it should be there. And let's see. And there we are. Freshwater biodiversity. So you can see it's quite simple to pull in stuff from the web. I did want to show you an actual website too. If we just did a search for biodiversity, I believe there's a UN. So if I want to pull in this United Nations website, pretty simple to do. And you'll notice too that the little icon changes sometimes. So in this case, I want to share, or rather save a citation for this web page. So I click on the piece of paper. Again, you have to be in your desktop to get this to work, right? So your desktop has to be open. Your desktop version, I mean. So I'm saving this to biology paper. And there we are. We have our website as well. So it pulls in very many things, and it's quite useful for that. One thing it also does is it does save a screenshot. So I believe because websites change frequently, it should save a screenshot automatically. I mean, it used to do this. I'm not sure if it does anymore, actually. And again, it does link to the URL, so you can find all this information if you need to go back to that website. So let me just try that again. I wanted to see if it does. Yeah, okay, so snapshot, yeah. So it will include a snapshot of, so I'll go done. So it should include a snapshot of that as well. And it takes you back if you click on it. Now I forget, I think they've changed it a little bit since I've done this last time, and I can't recall. Oh yeah, view snapshot, pretty easy. And there you go. So you can go back and it literally is a snapshot, an HTML page that is saved to your Zotero account. So it will take you back to this screenshot of that page for future reference in case the website changes, as they frequently do. Okay, so now we're about halfway, well, a third of the way through, so we do have a bit of time here. So I also want to show you importing books. So we often want to import citations for books, of course, into our library. You can do this manually, so you can just add, like if you want to just add a citation by itself, click on book, for example, and you literally just type in this, I don't know, say biodiversity. That's the title of the book, blah, blah. I can fill in the author, all this stuff. But there's a pretty easy way to do it. So in this case, if, say, I'm going to delete this now. So say it is a book that we have in the library catalog. It's pretty easy to import citations that way as well. So I'll go back. So just to show you again the website, we have Discover Search, scholarly articles, a subset of that. Journal titles is all the journals we subscribe to. The library catalog is going to be our physical books and ebooks. So again, same thing. I'm going to use our biodiversity keyword just to see what we got. Again, the purpose is importing the citation. So for example, many books. We have print books, we have ebooks. Look at this one. If we want to import the citation, you again click on the title, go into the full record, and then you see here what's really kind of cool about the icon in our desktop or our toolbar is that will change depending on where you are. So it senses, is this a website? Is this a book? What is this? So it can tell automatically this is a book citation from a library catalog. I don't know how it knows, but here we are. So we'll click on that little book icon. And again, make sure it's in the same folder. That's fine. Okay, click enter, and then it will import the book as well. So again, here we are. Book, all that stuff, and it shows you the library catalog. In this case, it doesn't link directly back to the book, but it tells you where you found it, right? Pretty useful. Another case, it may be also the case that you're not using a book in our collection, but it's a book you maybe borrowed from a friend or, bought at a used bookstore or just bought yourself, you can also find citations to pull in on Amazon. So I'm not, pushing Amazon or saying it's a great seller, all this stuff, whatever. Feel about it how you will. It's totally fine. But the purpose of this is just to show you that because Amazon has a lot of book records, if you want to include the record for a book you've maybe found on Amazon, you can do that too. So in this example, biodiversity in Canada, conservation in Canada, I want to import this into my citation manager. I can do that as well. Same thing as a library catalog. It will, if you click on the little book icon, you can save to your folder, click enter, and there you are. It will be there, and it will include that link too. Again, I'm not promoting Amazon or anything like that, but it's just a good place to find books. So again, back at our thing, you can see we're building up quite the bibliography. Pretty good. Just all these imported citations. So I want to show you also the Internet Archive. The Internet Archive is also useful, particularly if you're doing like historical research. They have a lot of books that have been scanned and put into their collections, including like a lot of older ones too. So for example, say I want to cite the Manual of Weeds. It's very similar to what you do with Amazon or the library catalog. Again, click on that little book icon, make sure it's in the right folder, enter, and there you are. This is where I do want to point out, though, there it is, right into our thing. I want to point out that when you are looking at these citations, you can edit them on the right-hand pane. I didn't really talk about this too much yet because the right-hand side here, this shows you all of the different little fields where we call these fields where you include metadata or publication information. These can be edited because this is the data that is going to be pulled in to create your bibliography. So in this case, just to show you a reason why sometimes these are wrong, in this case it says the contributor is Cornell University Library. That's true because Cornell University Library contributed this scanned book, but Cornell had nothing to do with publication, had nothing to do with authorship, nothing to do with any of that. It just contributed it to the Internet Archive. If I were to cite this book in a paper, I could cite it as though it were the print version if I wanted to, or I could cite it as an online digital book with the URL. That said, in this example, you wouldn't need Cornell as part of the citation when you're creating a bibliography, just to be aware. And I also want to point out too, I believe the book from our library catalog, this wasn't quite the example I was thinking of, but it could be if the book, what I've noticed, if you pull in a citation from our catalog, if the book has more than one, if it's a chapter book that is edited, so you have an editor and then chapters written by different people, it will list all the authors as editors. So you want to, and that will create a very unwieldy and incorrect citation. So you want to be aware of things like this. Again, it's all machine operated. It's all, whatever, what do they say, garbage in, garbage out, right? If you have correct citation information in, correct citation information will come out when you create your bibliography. So again, just to be aware of, you can edit and improve your citations so that when you go forward to make your bibliography, they will make more sense and will be correctly formatted. You can also do things like adding notes. So for example, this is a great book. I want to note that this book, Chapter 1 was, or Chapter 3, say, was useful, blah, 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 and then save it, right? So that would save your notes. And the notes are separate from the citation. So you can have the notes here. It's a place where you can make notes about your research as well as saving citations. So there's quite a bit you can do with Zotero. Another quick thing I want to show you, I believe I showed you this already, was trash. So anything you want to delete, sometimes you have to delete from more than one collection. So in this case, I decided I don't need to do this chemistry assignment, or I dropped the class or whatever. It's done. I can delete this. So you just right-click, delete collection. Yep. And then everything you delete, like this book that I didn't want to include, should be in the trash. When you delete a collection, it's gone. The items in there have to be deleted separately. So empty trash. And there you are. So it's pretty straightforward. Zotero is pretty intuitive. Once you get used to it, it's pretty easy to use. Okay, so now we'll get on to creating bibliographies. So In this instance, I have all my citations. I've written my paper. And what I actually recommend really is correcting citations as you go. Okay, it's not really a good idea to save citing until the very end. You should do that as you go. But in this case, I have all these papers. These are all going to be cited in my paper. So now it's time to create a bibliography. So it's pretty straightforward to do as well. So again, this is why every collection should represent a single assignment for which you want to cite the same sources. So I'm going to click on my paper and I say create bibliography from collection. And this is where you can choose very many citation styles. You can see there's so many IEEE, even if you're an engineer, want to publish there. In this case, we're just going to go with APA, bibliography. You want to make sure this is clicked, bibliography, and save as RTF. RTF, this is going to create a Word document. So I click OK, and it's asking me to save it, RTF, so I'll do that. And then I can go to my desktop, then open that folder, that file, there it is, Word document. And you can see, magically, look at my bibliography. That's great, right? All of this looks to be formatted correctly, but I will warn you, it's almost certainly not, right? So depending on how familiar you are with APA style, you can see some of this is correct, some of it's not. So in this case, for example, this is incorrect capitalization on this title, right? So this isn't quite right. Again, SciTech Premium, we don't really care about that. We want the DOI instead, right? So this creates bibliographies. It saves you a lot of work, but it's only creating a bibliography based on the information that it can see here in the information. So what you can do if you're finding that, so this, which is one here, Demohorsky. What was the title? Okay, so the EU path, this was this paper here. So in this case, I can go through and correct this. This one had no DOI, but I can add the correct URL. I can remove archive, that's not important. All these things, so I can edit this, and I can edit the title. So for example, this should be a lowercase r, lowercase l, etc. If I edit this here, next time I create the bibliography, it will show up in the correct format. So again, saves you a lot of typing, but always double check. You always want to make sure that you're proofreading. It's very important to do that. You never ever just copy and paste this into your paper and hand it in, because you always want to double check. Again, anything that's machine created, you got to just double check. You got to confirm, right? Because you don't want to lose marks because of that. So you can also install a Zotero plugin that allows you to insert, so if we want to create a new document here, you can use Zotero. So again, you wouldn't write a paper about this, about biodiversity. If you install a Zotero plugin, which again, there's instructions for that on the website, but if you do this, you can then go to Zotero. This is just a demo here of add edit citation. This is showing you in text. I personally find this to be of limited value because I don't think it saves much time really. Because what all this is doing is it's adding the in-text citation. So my paper is about biodiversity. I'm citing, go to classic view, and then you find the paper that you're citing. So I'm citing this book. Okay. So to have the author. So you see how this works, right? Like when you're doing your in-text citation for APA, for example, this is correct. You would include the last name and date. So again, this is not obviously how you would cite. It's just an example. But it's pretty easy to install that Zotero plugin. And again, you are writing, you want to add a citation, add citation. I can't type. Add citation here. You want to go to Zotero plugin, add edit. Classic view, always remember that, and then choose. So again, this will easily put in the in-text citation. But again, you want to be careful about this. Personally, I don't think it saves that much time, and you want to make sure you're being very, very careful that you're selecting the correct document. You don't want to cite things the wrong way by mistake, right? It's pretty easy to accidentally click on the citation above or below. So you just want to be careful about that. Okay, so it's kind of whirlwind tour of Zotero and how to use it for citing. I want to return now Finally, back to our slide presentation. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to collaborate. In this instance, it's just easier to show this with our slides just because it's a kind of, there's a lot of steps and it's just not really fun to go through with personal data either. Okay, so what you want to do sometimes is create a shared Zotero library. So this is the way you can collaborate. So the reason why this is more useful than perhaps RefWorks or Endnote, which can be tied to your institution, Zotero is free. Anybody can use it, right? It's not tied to your library account at Athabasca or MUN or anything like that. It's just a free account that's available out there. So it's really useful for collaborating. So you can set up shared web libraries to collaborate with your colleagues. So we'll go over that just kind of briefly. So what you're going to do here is just create a new group, right? So I'm going to show, this is again the web library I'm demonstrating, not the desktop, because it's a little bit easier to create in the web library, but you can do it in both. So again, to do this, you want to click on the Groups tab, and it's a little small, unfortunately. And then it's pretty simple. Click on Create a New Group. Again, very intuitive. And then you want to give the group a name that describes its purpose. So in this case, we, with a colleague and I, were doing a project on digital literacy. So we were sharing the Zotero library to share literature on that topic. So we just named it Library Resources for Digital Literacy. So you want it to be descriptive, describe what you're doing. Again, this is all up to you, though. You can choose a level of privacy. So you can have a public open Zotero thing where anybody can look at it, anybody can join your library. It can be public with closed membership, so it's a public account, but people can't join it. Or it can be just a private group. In this case, depending on how sensitive your area of research is, you may or may not want to make it public. It's probably just easiest to go with a private group. Just only people who you share the citations with will have access, and that's fine. It's up to you, really. And then once you've clicked, you've set everything up, you can click Create Group, and then you have a brand new group. So you want to also make sure that the settings are correct. So you want to just double check that it's private, all that stuff. And then you also might want to confirm, once you go back, then you'll see that if you go back to your Zotero account and look at this Groups tab, you can see, okay, this group has been created. Now I can start doing things with that. So what you can do is start adding members. So basically, you can, or I guess we'll just quickly talk about the profile. So you can create your own personal profile. So you can add a description of the group. You can add sort of areas of study, interest, that kind of thing. What the group's about, if you care, a more full description. Again, it depends what you want to use the group for, really. And then once the group has been set up, then you can start inviting members. So you just want to make sure all the settings are saved, your group is set up appropriately, and then you can invite people. So it's pretty easy to invite people. You just click on Manage Members. And then once you're in there, you want to send more invitations. So this basically is through email. So if you know somebody's username, in this case, pretty straightforward, it was her first name, last name. If you know their username in Zotero, you can add that, or you can add it by email. It's really the same either way. Okay, and once your invitees have accepted that, you can see that they're now part of the group. And then you can also, they'll be added to the list of current members, and you can also adjust it too, like if you want to make them an admin, if you want to remove them, all that stuff. Do note that if you want everybody in the group to be able to share articles, everybody has to be an admin, right? Members can only see articles. The admins can share them and see them. So do be aware of that. You can also, there is also some in-app messaging you can do as well. So if you can send messages within Zotero if you feel like it, if you're all working in that same tool. It's pretty easy to do. You send it. It's like a messaging. It's like almost like a forum. You just write the message, click send, and then they'll get it and can respond. And then of course you have an inbox. This again is the web version. So if you want to see all your messages, you click on inbox, and there they all are. It's pretty straightforward. I don't know how many people actually use this for messaging. I think most of us text and email, right? But it is an option as well. And again, the key part usually is going to be sharing documents. So to share documents, or in this case, citations, if you want to link a PDF, you can do that too. You can do that. You want to click on Group Library. And then this will open up your group's collaborative library, sort of within your Zotero account. And then basically you just import items to that group the same way you would in any other collection in Zotero. So it's pretty straightforward. Takes a bit of getting used to, but most people can figure it out on their own pretty easily. And there is documentation online as well. Okay, so we've covered using Zotero for collaboration and sharing. So you can also use it as part of your online professional profile. Mendeley used to be big for this, but people kind of stopped using Mendeley that much, and Mendeley actually discontinued a lot of their researcher profiles. I don't know how popular it is in Zotero, but it is something you can do. So you go to My Profile and then click Edit Profile. Here, edit profile, you can see, and I've had this one for probably 10 years, right? Maybe more. So you can edit it, and then when you edit, this is your personal profile. Really out of date, mine is, but you can put up pictures, you can describe yourself. Again, this isn't for your shared account. This is just your personal Zotero settings, because you can make your account profile. Some people might use Zotero for networking. Don't really think a lot of people do, but this is an option. Go into your settings, add your picture, you can put up your CV if you want, various things, kind of have fun with it. And so, yeah, basically that's kind of where we're at. I do want to show, one really quick thing I forgot to show you before we move on to the wrap up was your own personal profile. So I'm just going to really quickly go back to sharing my screen. Hope everyone can see that. So yeah, we got our manual of weeds. If you go to Google Scholar, where is it again? I have to find that again, I think. So if you are a researcher yourself, and a lot of you are, or you're burgeoning researchers, you're new in the field, you can actually add your own publications. So it sounds like a bit full of myself, but really it's useful if you want to share your own profile. So if you do have a Google Scholar account, for example, you can pull in citations for your own research. So I believe if you go to my publications, that's not one of my publications. That's weird that it's there, but I will move it to the trash. So you can import these into your own personal publication folder. So that's what I'll do here. For example, this is one of my older ones, or newer one, I guess. But I want to pull the citation in. So I'll do refman, and I will say, okay. And then here's where I want to select more. And I want to put it into my papers, where is it? Okay, we'll save it to my library. It's not showing up there for some reason. And then your library is everything you've pulled in. So this is here. And then what I'll do is I'll drag and drop. Any mistakes, drag and drop. The thing to be aware of, though, if you drag and drop into your publication, you have to confirm that you created this work. I mean, look, nobody's checking, but if you're using Zotero for part of your personal profile, it might be useful, and it might be useful for yourself just professionally to have a folder of your own citations so that you can turn them into an MLA bibliography or APA or whatever if you're applying for a job or applying for like a writing position or something like that, right? It might be useful to have your own publications in the folder. So that's kind of the last thing I wanted to share about using Zotero for that kind of thing. Okay, so that was a very brief introduction to Zotero. So one of the questions we get all the time though is what is better, Zotero or Mendeley? This is up to you. Again, like we say, they're both free. Zotero, in my anecdotal experience, seems to be more widely used, but it's up to you. And again, we have our citation style guide. The right side also helps with writing and citing too. Again, our citation management guide provides you with more information about these things. I mean, for example, I mentioned PDFs. If you do want to store PDFs in your Zotero account, it will take up some space. So Zotero is free, but you can pay extra for extra storage if you want. But again, pretty similar. Zotero and Mendeley, pretty comparable. Endnote, you have to pay a little bit more for if you want the basic version. And we don't really know as much about Endnote in the library in terms of offering support. But yeah, so let's there. Okay, so I was going to show you our library YouTube channel, which I can't remember now if we have a link. No, Facebook and Twitter, but Google that. Okay, so here's our YouTube channel. I believe I have it bookmarked, but I hid my bookmarks bar. Okay, so there we go. So this is where the posting, oops, very frustrating. This is where the posting will be later on. So I'll just copy paste that. Tons of other videos if you want to take a look.